Hi. Well, we've gone through weeks 3 to 4 now, and these 2 weeks have been related to the analysis part of the 3A's. First was awareness, now analysis, and then these next 2 weeks that follow we'll be focusing on the issues of action. How do you actually bring about change? And we talked about the importance of this because the way the world is going with regards to rising population, energy consumption, because the fact that we know that individual and community wealth is directly related to energy consumption, because we realize that everything we do incorporates energy. You buy a box of cereal, there's an energy component in that, because there was energy required to prepare the field that the wheat, say for example, if that was one of the components of the cereal, that the wheat was grown in. The field has to be tilled, it has to be seeded, it's going to be fertilized in many cases. And of course, there's energy component in that. There's energy component in running a tractor to do all this, because you got to use fuel. Then then there's energy for harvesting, storing, transporting, processing in the food processing company that's making the cereal, and then putting it in the box. And of course, there's energy in making the box and everything else, and running the equipment to get it there, and then put it on a truck, take it to the store, put it on a shelf. So when you start thinking about it, there's energy used in everything, and that's why with growing population and demand for energy, a couple things we talked about are going to be concerns. One is whenever you're using energy, you're removing a natural resource, but furthermore, you're adding pollutants into the atmosphere, because usually it involves burning something. If it's fission and fusion, well, there's the energy required to get those uranium and thorium mixtures together in a fuel element, build a reactor system, whatever the case may be. And there's emissions there, and then of course there can be emissions of radioactivity from the plant itself, although it's not smoke. And if you're making solar cells, there's emissions associated with that. And if we think about technology from getting the raw materials together to disposing of the product at the very end, and that there's a lot going on, and there's ethical and community and impact issues at every step along the way. Well, that being the case then, with growing pollution, and of course that seems to be causing weather changes, ecological changes in our world, that is also going to have an impact on food production. And so we saw the case where Lester Brown had written a book on, full planet, empty plates. And we know that if you are high enough in Maslow's hierarchy of human needs, and you're down at the first level just trying to get food and that, so you're in a part of the world where you're barely getting by, and when you stop and think about it, the United States isn't that much different. When I've heard numbers like 40% of our children live in poverty, which is not a very good sign. That food prices go up, there's problems. Well, you just look at this and you can see that this issue of growing population, greater energy need, environmental changes in the ecosystem, and food is going to create some difficulties, let alone all the things that are happening in the biological world. So it's really an important thing to be able to do these assessments so that you can stand up and make your commentary or your actions based on the best available information you have. And that's why it's important, and that's why we spent time on this. Admittedly, it wasn't long enough, but it's essential that you at least be aware of it, have some idea of what people have done, how you do it, how you can dig deeper. And now we're going to move into the area of, now that we know this and we are happy or we're unhappy or whatever the case may be, how can we act? And that's what we're going to be doing this next 2 weeks. So see you when we begin week 5.